What up, Bills fans? Welcome back to the Buffalo Morning Brew on the Hoof Podcast. Sitting here with my buddy Anthony, and we are fired up over this loss
Mhm.
on
It's a
Sunday.
stinker, man. We got a lot to talk about today, don't we? Huh? It's not the kind
Yes,
of news you want to get after a game. Any loss is bad, but when you lose players and you lose and it's overseas and you got so much that goes into this, I mean, it's brutal, brutal, brutal on all fronts.
yes, yeah. Just being up early, kind of out of the rhythm a little bit. Like, okay, I'm supposed to be doing stuff around the house to get ready for Sunday. Usually, when 1 o'clock comes around, you're resting, but nope, we were resting all day long. A lot
Yeah.
of people talked about, starting to drink beers at 9. They even passed a law in New York that said you could go to the bar at 9 and get
Yes.
served
Yep.
beer.
Mm-hmm.
1 day law, right? So state looking out for everybody, but definitely messed up the system a little bit. Where'd you watch the game?
Well, I was in the Adirondacks with my wife's family for the weekend, for the long weekend, Columbus Day weekend, Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. And yeah, so luckily the nice little uh, camp we were staying at had internet connection, so I could connect and watch the game that way. But it was, yeah, I was up in the room kind of screaming at my computer to myself this weekend, and then got to at least relax up in the mountains. It's a good thing I was in a nice serene place. It wasn't the best weather-wise. We had rain and everything, but still being with family, being able to relax was good, to kind of come down from. But I couldn't help but be sick to my stomach with the things that happened in this game. So it was good, but you know, good. I'm glad I wasn't home. I didn't get to watch any other football really until the next day because I was just sick.
Yeah, I went to one of my best friend's wedding in
Hmm.
Florida. Congratulations, Mike. Had a beautiful wedding, had a beautiful times down there for 5 days, hanging out with some old friends, and really had a great time.
Nice.
But wedding was Saturday, so we're all little hungover on Monday or on Sunday. So we all sat around, watched the game.
Early morning too.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I had to
Staying up
actually
late
leave
to party.
early, so I ended up watching the game in the Uber on my phone
Oh
with YouTube
boy.
TV. Who I just got YouTube TV. It's actually pretty good.
Mm,
You know,
nice.
came in clear and everything on the ride. So, but it was a pretty tense game. I mean, we kind of knew it'd be,
Yeah.
slow. Usually the Jaguars Bills matchup is like defense and running game.
I've seen it.
And,
Yeah.
it seems to be that way every time, right? Remember the 6-3 game a few years
Oh,
back? Kind of had that vibe early on. Like, okay, we're doing this again. Bills had tons of 3 and outs. Like, the game was not going the way it's
no
supposed to, right?
momentum. No, both sloppy, right? I mean, the Jaguars didn't play particularly well either, right? Considering,
Right.
sure, they dominated the game from start to finish, really, but they didn't finish drives either. They were punting a lot too. They were making mistakes, turning the ball over. They did not look clean or good or they're happy with the win, obviously, but I think they'll have a lot to review on tape as well from this game.
Mhm.
So they've got some growing to do too. But
Yes,
I'd much
yes.
rather be in their shoes than ours right now. That's for
Yeah, and I
sure.
I just think it kinda shocked Bills fans after having 3 weeks of huge double-digit wins, and
Mhm.
just kinda having these easy Sundays that it just caught everybody off guard that they came out flat, like, the Bills came out flat in
Yeah.
London, and that just kinda, like, turned everyone a little sour. Now that they lost, I have heard so many excuses from fans,
It
um,
happens. Yeah.
from friends, from family, just around, from radio shows or podcasts. I mean, The I've heard every excuse for the Bills.
Yeah, we'll have to get into it because
Yeah,
I mean, what didn't you hear with this one, right? A
right,
lot that I don't agree with. Some I would probably give, credit to, but yeah, there's
right,
a lot of narratives out there now, as there
right.
always is after a loss. You want to say, "Oh, trade this guy or get rid of that guy," or Sean McDermott should be fired after every
Yeah,
loss. But
fire everyone. Yeah,
yeah, we know that that's not the
yeah.
case here, right?
So I was, while I was listening to everything and everybody, talk. I always talk to people at work and everything about the game, obviously, but I came up with 13 excuses, and
13. Oh
there's
boy.
probably more, but we only have an hour show or hour and a half. So, but yeah, let's get through these. I'll go through the 13. I got them listed out here, and we'll just talk about each one. But number one, The Bills should have arrived in London earlier in the week.
Oh,
McDermott said originally the plan was to get there Thursday, and then after talking with the sports medicine group or whatever, they ended up leaving Friday. So
yeah.
number one excuse, the Bills should have left earlier in the week, and that would have had an impact on the game.
Yeah, I mean, this was surprising to me even coming in. A lot of people were asking me last week, when are the Bills going to leave for London? I said probably right after the game, right the next day. Yeah. No, they decided, they talked to their sports science people, whatever. This is one of the approaches, because now we know it was a bad one. It's okay to say that now, looking back. But I was shocked at the approach initially that they weren't leaving until that late. Because, just thinking about it common sense wise, you're like, okay, wouldn't they want to go over there, have a few days to get adjusted? And I'll tell you, the first red flag for me was listening to the Stephon Diggs press conference after we had landed. They landed in London, and he said, "Oh, Josh is a little sleepy." And I was nervous from that point on. Like, what? What do you mean Josh is sleepy? Like, he was supposed to sleep on the plane, adjust. I want him to be physically ready to go. Everything, feeling good, feeling the time difference, whatever. And that made me nervous from the get. And it obviously played out differently, not necessarily on Josh, but just the whole team coming out sleepy. They looked
Right.
sleepy. There's no other word for it. They were tired. They were not in the right mindset for this game. And I think that
Right.
travel had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and I'm sure the strategy or the thought process was, let's get there, get the win, and get the hell out of town. Right? That's why you leave later in the week. But if you think they left earlier, do you think that would have an impact?
I
If
mean,
you're
they
the
might have.
coach too, would you do something different?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, without talking to sports science, analyzing, I'm a scientist. Don't get me wrong. I like data. I like information. But at some point, you've got to trust your gut. And when it comes to football, that's more of who I am. You trust your instinct, you trust your gut. Common sense tells you I want more days to get adjusted to the time zone than, go at the last minute and then your body adjusts differently or whatever. So I definitely, if I was coach, I would have said, we're getting over there, pack your bags for 2 weeks. As soon as the Miami game's over, we're done. We're leaving. Right. So, especially knowing that the Jags were already there for a week.
Right.
The most BS storyline I heard all week is, oh, maybe they're tired and they're going to want to go home because they're out of their rhythm. I didn't understand that at all. I was pushing back on that all week. Like, no, what? That team has been there. They're just established. It's the same as if you go to the West Coast and you stay there or whatever. It just didn't make sense from the get to me, common sense wise. Now, of course, the staff scientists, the sports scientists obviously presented something that told them, hey, this is the way we think you should approach it. And I guarantee you that teams moving forward will use this as an example of why not to do it this way, right? So and get there much earlier.
Yeah, and what's surprising to me is this is a Bills home game on the schedule.
Yeah.
Right,
Brutal.
but then the Jaguars stay there a week and basically get the home field advantage, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
More neutral, but
well, even if they had flown out
for me.
Even if they had flown out the same time, the same place, they play in London all the time. That was a home field advantage for them from the get-go. Having them stay an extra week to me from the start was ridiculous. That's why originally when I went through the Bills schedule, I counted this as a loss because I knew they would be there for a week. They're a tough opponent, and this is their home turf that we're playing on, basically. They've played there before. They know it much better than we do. So I had it down as a loss for all of those reasons. Now, coming into this game in the season, I predicted us to win because we were coming off a strong few games there and we looked like we were clicking on all cylinders. But it was just an unfair advantage from the start for the Jags. And I know we talked briefly about it, but I heard comments from the commissioner after the game that he had made when the schedule came out over in between before the preseason, talking about like, yeah, we're trying some new things this year and having a team stay out there for a week was one of the things we wanted to try and see if that gives a competitive advantage or how that affects the game. Well, you got your obvious answer there, George. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, oh, if you're there an extra week, it gives you a very big advantage. I mean, I don't understand why the NFL needed to see that in action and why they needed to do it for the Buffalo Bills home game and not one of these other teams. But yeah, I mean, we knew that well before this game ever kicked off, well before the season ever kicked off, that was going to be a competitive advantage for the Jaguars. And we heard the NFL admit exactly that this was a test of that. And I guarantee you, we don't ever see that again, because the team that it's going against is going to be like, no, that's clearly an unfair advantage.
Right. I'm okay with the London games, but I'm kind of upset that we're not getting Manchester United games in the United States. I feel like that could be a fair trade.
Yeah,
because they took a Bills home game away.
Sure. Do they have to play on our shitty football fields and fall all over themselves? And
I feel like there should be a little barter going on here. Anyway, let's get into number 2. We got a lot to get to. Lots of excuses out there. Number 2, Bills should have ran the ball more. They come out flat, right? We know it's a cold start for the offense, dropping passes, not seeing the field well. I mean, decent, but there's a lot of mistakes in the passing game, right?
Yeah, lots of drops.
Still, the Bills did not run the ball that much throughout the day.
Well,
let's see, Josh Allen 4 attempts.
He was the lead rusher.
Harris 3 attempts. Murray 2 attempts. James Cook 5 attempts.
Yeah. Well,
when got cold there,
it just from the get-go, it's not about running the ball more, because it clearly wasn't effective. I think that it was just predictable runs, right? It was, I mean, you could put blinders on and say, oh, it's first down. Guess what the Bills are doing? Handing it off up the middle, boom, run, right?
Yeah.
For the first
shotgun
81%
of the time as well.
For the first 3 series, I was just like dumbfounded by that. Like, okay, they know you're running it on first down. Why don't you change it up a little? Like, come on. And it's not working, right? I think the first play of the game worked, but then they didn't get a first down after that. And then it was clearly the Jags knew what was coming and were well prepared for it. So that's when, I don't know who's in control there. Obviously Ken Dorsey, but maybe Josh Allen should have audibled out of it. I don't know, but the personnel on the field obviously was for a run play, and it was too predictable when you were running the ball. I don't like that, and I felt that especially in the first quarter of this game. After that, I think it was more just, okay, the run isn't effective. We've tried to establish that. They're shutting it down. We're going to have to pass the ball to get out of this. And if maybe our receivers could catch the ball on big plays, then, we would have been better off too. But so it's a combination of things. I don't like this excuse, because I don't think that was the problem. It's about when you called the runs and how effective the run game was. You can pass all day. If you know the run game's not effective and the pass game is, keep passing the ball. You got no reason to run the ball. So I never like, staying one dimensional. You could say the opposite too. If they're shutting down the pass and the run is going well, no reason to pass. Just keep running it. Right.
But I thought maybe this game was, their offense was obviously having some problems, and it felt like one of those games we needed an adjustment. Right. And I thought maybe you could run the ball 3 times in a series, right? First down, second down, third down, just get a spark, maybe do a quarterback run in there, just because it's that type of game, right? It feels like it's almost like an AFC North type game. We're just going to run and play good defense and just don't turn the ball over, and you could have scored. And I think throughout most of this game up to the fourth quarter, the score was like single digits. I think, Jacksonville had 11, but like this type of game is when you need to shift and run the ball more, is what I felt like. And I feel like the Bills have that this year, and they haven't had that in previous years and didn't use it.
Yeah. I mean, again, maybe, but I don't like that excuse.
All right. Next one. We got plenty to choose from. So if you don't like one, it's okay. Many here. Excuse number 3, the turf.
My God. This is one that all week I was asking people, I was talking. So there's reporters out there, 2 that were, I leaned on Joe Marino for this. I leaned on the guys who were out there, Ryan Talbot and Matt Perino, right? They were there. I messaged them. I said, hey, report on the field. I want to know what the field is like, because we're going to Europe, right? These stadiums are not designed to play the game of American football. They're designed for soccer, right? And I know that they do everything they can and make it to the NFL standards, but the bottom line is it's not a football stadium. It's not a football field. And they're like, oh, well, we put on a football field and we did it to the NFL. I don't care about that. All week I was worried about injuries because of where we were playing, meaning the physical conditions of the turf. And I think this one is legitimate because, playing on that field led to a lot of injuries, led to a lot of miscues, I felt. You had players complaining about it after the game, right? There was an unnamed player right after the game who said it was like playing on concrete. Then there was stories after that where I know at least Taron Johnson came out and said the condition of the field was horrendous and they should tear it up and throw it away. And he said, I don't understand why we don't play on grass.
Right. Taron Johnson, quote, "The turf was terrible here. They have to get rid of it. Report that.
Yeah.
If we can do grass, we should do grass." Which is interesting because the Tottenham Hotspur Soccer Club plays on natural grass.
Yeah.
And then they roll out artificial turf for the 7 NFL games.
Exactly. Stupid.
But I mean, a few NFL CEOs have come out, or executives, I won't say CEOs, executives, and they say there's no statistical significance to injuries on grass versus turf.
Okay, but now times that by not playing in a stadium that's built for the NFL. I don't care what turf you put down. If you're putting it on top of concrete and not on the field it's meant to be played on, that's going to have an effect, period. Again, that was my concern all week, and that was ultimately what we saw play out, unfortunately. And, it was just a sticking point for me, especially. I tweeted about it. I was angry about it because that was my concern, and it came to fruition. And if I can think of it, the NFL should have thought of it. I get it. They said, oh, these are the conditions, and we made it beautiful, and probably spent millions and millions and millions of dollars just to make it happen.
Right.
And it wasn't good. The players are telling the guys who are on the field, putting their boots in the ground, say, it's not good enough. And it didn't feel the same as other fields, period.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point earlier. It probably messes up the timing a little bit. I mean, one way or another, obviously grass would do the same if it's really muddy. But never really thought that turf could mess that up as well. Usually you think that's good traction and everything, but doesn't feel that way. Anyway, getting off the turf here. Number 4, excuse number 4, key injuries.
Yeah.
Bills get slammed with injuries during the game. Matt Milano, DaQuan Jones get hurt during the game. Taron Johnson was out for a while, ended up coming back. But that's why the Bills lose, right? Is it those 3 key players being out for that period of time that ultimately caused the Bills to lose? That's excuse number 4.
I would say in this game, you could look at it a couple ways. Yeah. No, because the defense still held the Jaguars to 11 points going into the fourth quarter. Where the hell's the offense? The defense did what they could do up until the fourth quarter. Now, we got a lot to talk about on the defense, too. You lose DaQuan Jones. Yes, that was horrible. The guy was playing his absolute best football, without a doubt. We've all been talking about him. Every Bills reporter, every Bills podcaster has said, look what DaQuan Jones has done. And we saw in the playoff game when he didn't play, what happened? We all of a sudden were like, oh, shoot, DaQuan Jones has a lot to do with why this defensive line plays so well, because when he's not there, all of a sudden they are nowhere near as effective. So, yes, that's going to affect them long term, right? And the Matt Milano injury is the devastating blow, without a doubt. He is the best player on that defense, most consistent. And you're talking to the OG Matt Milano stand. When we started this podcast, I used to say, Matt Milano in, defense good. Matt Milano out, defense bad. It was that simple back then. And I was the first to say, we need to sign this guy to a forever deal because he's that damn good. And sure enough, we did end up keeping him, which is great. But that loss cannot be understated enough. There is no replacement for Matt Milano. Nobody in the NFL is going to be as good as Matt Milano, or even close, right? That's a huge step back for the defense. And I'm worried about that one long term. But to say the injuries are why we lost this game, I would call that a bad excuse, because the defense held until the fourth quarter because we were down at every single position, the guys were absolutely gassed, and sure, the Jaguars were able to run a couple touchdowns after that just because the defense was absolutely beat up at that point. They ran like 90 plays. Are you kidding me?
It's insane.
I mean, you literally see Epinesa sucking air on the sideline because he's so gassed because he was out there every single play. Same with the rest of those guys. I mean, you got practice squad guys playing snaps. That's never a good thing. And, they still did a pretty decent job of holding them. So excuse, I would call it that. More like devastating loss long term. Both of those.
Yeah, and
Pretty
defense still able to get some plays in there. 5 sacks. They had 3 forced fumbles on Trevor Lawrence. They recovered
Mhm.
1, and
Epinesa played really, really, really
yeah,
well.
Epinesa played great. They had 5 tackles for loss. Terrell Bernard had 16 combined tackles.
Mm.
That's stepping up for him.
Yeah,
And
without
yeah,
Milano there, but it
yeah.
just
So
you could
to get
certainly
those
feel the
plays without the
difference.
key players is it's a statement. That's a
Yes,
deep defense. There's still a lot of talent on the defense, but man,
right?
you're absolutely right. Losing the heart and soul in Matt Milano, arguably the best defensive player on the team, and then DaQuan Jones, who's kind of filled that
Huh,
that
yeah,
starting that defensive tackle 1 position that the Bills kind of
right.
missed for a while. He came on last year and came out really hot this year. Just hate to see that. So,
Yeah,
all right,
brutal.
moving on to the next one. Excuse number 5, Kaiir Elam.
Oh, dear God. I mean, he's clearly a young player. I'm not ready to throw in the towel with him. He's got to learn, right? And now we understand, I think most of us, why he was, an inactive player on game day, because
Yeah,
to
inactive
me,
for 4 weeks,
he just
all 4
looked
games.
he just looked like he was not ready. He was not ready to be out there. He got burned a lot. He he seemed to not have his footing, his confidence. Maybe that was the turf too. Maybe it was the moment because he's been inactive and now all of a sudden he was thrust into a starting role. You don't know, but with a young guy, I trust that McDermott's going to be able to teach him as much as he can and help him along as much as he can, and the rest of the coaching staff, obviously. But um, obviously, that's McDermott's bread and butter is cornerbacks, and this it was not a good showing for Elam. I mean, I was constantly looking at the screen, being like, "Oh, deep pass, that must be Elam," and sure enough, it was right.
Yeah,
And he just got torched out
right.
there and beat up and manhandled. I mean, it did not look good
Yeah,
for him. I don't think I could say one positive thing about him
right.
from
Well,
this game. But I'm
it
not one of those people who saying, "Oh, it's time to trade him, cut
right.
him, get rid
Well,
of
I
him."
mean,
No,
it is interesting to see a first round pick be inactive for 4 weeks. That's a
certainly
shocker.
disappointing.
I'm not really sure what's going on in there. We all think it's lack of preparation. That's kind of the hints you get from McDermott, and Beans mentioned it before as well. But for a player to be inactive for 4 weeks, then you have to come out and primarily, you're getting attacked by Calvin
Number one
Ridley, who's,
guys, yeah,
probably definitely the number 1 receiver on that team and arguably a top 10 receiver in the league. That's a challenge for anybody. It's
yeah.
basically week 1, and Calvin Ridley's been playing, at a high level for 5 weeks. So that's going to be
Plus,
hard for anybody.
yeah, and
So
add
the
in that
argument can be made that he's set up to fail.
yeah, the whole defense was gassed. We talked about that, right? So it's not
Yeah,
like Kaiir Elam was exempt from that. He also had to travel and was tired and everything and lost a step there just like everybody else did. And, he was going against Calvin Ridley and had the disadvantage. It did not add up to a good day for him. Now we need to see how he rebounds because he's still
yeah,
presumably going to start the next week against the
for
Giants.
sure.
So
Yeah, depending on
we'll
Benford, if Benford comes back, keep an eye on that. But Elam definitely going to be involved in this defense now. And we've seen him play well at times. So I
yes,
think, you know,
he has the talent. There's no
yeah,
question he was a first round talent, right? Now he's got to be able to translate that to the NFL. And I think with some guys, that takes some maturation, that takes some experience, that takes learning the fundamentals. I'm not a coach. I can't sit here and tell you every little detail of what he did wrong, but I know it didn't look good on the
no,
field. It definitely did not look good.
no, didn't look great for him. And do you think could they have handled it differently? I mean, it's hard to tell because Dane Jackson, Christian Benford are ballers out there. I mean, Dane Jackson made a number of plays in this game, mostly in his strength, which is tackling. He's a really good tackling corner, right? Running downhill. So remains to be seen with Kaiir Elam, but expect more of the same. But how's that excuse? We've gone through 5 so far.
Yeesh. We're
This one's
getting
up
there.
there. People love
Yes.
to hate on Kaiir right now.
I
All
mean,
right, number 6, Ken Dorsey. I've heard it. Fire Ken Dorsey.
what?
Yep, I've heard it. Maybe not credible. I'll just say a friend, but I heard
Yeah.
it. That's an excuse, and that's why it's number 6 here.
No. I mean, did he call a great game? Maybe. If the guys would have executed, you look at play by play or down or drive by drive, right? The first drive of the game, we had a first down. if the running back catches the screen pass, right? So, I mean, Cook drops the ball for 2 yards, would have been a first down. Instead, you're punting. Just
Yeah,
flat out drop the ball.
huge.
The other one was the freaking Gabe Davis catch, right? I mean, it was in his hands. He didn't catch it. And I tweeted at the time, for all those Gabe Davis stands out there, it's these plays that people talk about, because that was a huge point in the game. And even at the end of the game, if he had made that catch at that time, it would have changed momentum. Now, that's not saying even Stephon Diggs would miss a play here and there like he did with the jump ball. So don't get me started on that play either. But there's those moments somebody has to step up. So I don't put that on Ken Dorsey. He called the right plays for that. The only thing would be what I mentioned earlier, that the run game was a little too predictable on first down, right? It was pretty much, okay, we're going to run first down, we're going to pass second down, and then play it for third down, depending on where we're at. And most of the time it was third and long, so you were passing it, right? It's too predictable. But after the 3 games we had on offense, you're going to say fire Ken Dorsey? That's ridiculous talk. I mean, even like I said, it was more about execution. So you want to put it on preparation for Ken Dorsey? Maybe. The offensive line certainly didn't look like they had a good day. Josh Allen wasn't pressured, but they certainly couldn't block in the run game, which is what this offensive line is supposed to be built to do, you know? So there's a lot of other things to point at in terms of execution. And if you're talking about execution, some of that certainly falls on Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
But mostly it's the players, you know, and the game plan was not to blame here, I don't think.
Yeah, the Bills had 18 total first downs on the day. 13 came through the passing game, 3 by rushing, 2 by penalty. They're 5 for 12 on third down on the day.
Ugh. Below 50%.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And, in the first half in particular, the only knock I have on Ken Dorsey is you got to make adjustments. Kind of builds off, you should have ran the ball more, but you got to find a way. The passing game's not working. You're getting drop balls. It's sluggish. You've had a number of 3 and outs already. Try something different, but it seems like they just keep coming back and trying the same thing because they're good at it, right? We've seen them be good in full game, and when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, you think this next drive is going to be the one that's going to spark the offense and you're going to get back to business, but it just didn't come for a long period of time. I thought maybe Ken Dorsey was a little slow on the adjusting. Like you said, it was predictable. I think 81% of the time they were out of shotgun. So the only knock I have there is we just get a little bit of an adjustment, catch defense off guard. Like I said, run it 3 times, something they're not expecting, but we really didn't see that. And even with Dayball, we would see a trick play here and there, right, for moments like this, and just nothing like that really came, right?
I'm not a big fan of the trick play per se, but yeah, I mean,
but you needed something. You need a spark.
You definitely needed to change something, right? Yeah, but I would put it more on execution.
All right, let's go to excuse number 7. Getting through the list here, the 3 and outs.
Definitely.
Lots of 3 and outs. The cold start. Bills just kind of really had a slow start in this game, and
4 punts to start. I think it was.
Yeah. So 4 punts out the gate.
That was more than we had all season, by the way. We had
right.
3 punts coming into this game. It started with 4 drives of punts.
17 yards in the first quarter.
Ugly.
And then it finally got going about the 5th drive. They got their first touchdown.
That was the
and then you come out in the half and 2 punts. And that third drive, the first drive of the fourth quarter would be an interception. So just a really, really slow start, and it ends up costing the Bills, right? Defense was gassed. They were on the field way too long.
Yeah.
And you just can't start a game like that. I mean, in the first quarter, I already mentioned 17 yards. And then drive 3, the first 2 drives of the second quarter, drive 3 and 4, 18 net yards on the third, and then 19 net yards on the 4th drive. You just can't start a game like that, because it takes most games you'd be behind by a lot, it seems like. If you're playing a good offense, and they were,
right.
The defense, I think, made enough plays to keep the score low. But the offense has just got to figure something out. To me, that's kind of unacceptable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, first of all, this excuse is kind of a reason to me, not an excuse. This is a reason you lose, not an excuse for losing. Any team, if you have 3 and outs like this and you're punting all day, you're not going to win a game. That's not any football team is not going to win with that.
And what's most surprising is how hot this offense has been. the previous 3 weeks.
Right. Yeah. So again, 3 punts all year. You punt 7 drives to start the first and second half. You're not going to win a game that way. I mean, and the thing is, like you said, the defense did their job. At the end of the half, when they were driving, they got all the way down into the red zone, turned the ball over, thank God, because if they even kick a field goal there, I feel like the Bills pack up and go home, get on the plane. The game's over. Get on the plane. Don't even come out for the second half. And instead the defense makes that momentum changing play. Okay, we're going to come out the second half and make it a double dip. Well, not double dip because we had scored the previous drive, but similar to that, and start momentum going our way. And what do they do? Another 3 and out and another punt. It was just, the offense is definitely more to blame to me than the defense for this loss. And this is a big part of it. You couldn't make the plays when you needed to. Nobody was stepping. I mean, Stephon Diggs had a huge statistical game, and he always does. But, it seemed like everybody had a drop pass. I think there was one on Knox. I already talked about the Gabe Davis, the Cook. I mean, it was just Josh Allen had nobody stepping up with him except Diggs on times. And even Diggs down the field when the interception happened felt like he should have won that. In a normal situation, 9 times out of 10, I think I'd take Diggs in that matchup. But he lost that one. Maybe it's the travel and the being tired and all that. But yeah.
All right. Let's get on to excuse number 8. Greg Rousseau and Christian Benford out for this game. 2 players have been playing really well. Greg Rousseau in particular has been dominant on the line, and Benford been doing his part, right? So I mean, right out the gate, you're starting Dane Jackson. Von Miller's back on a pitch count, so that's kind of fills that gap a little bit with Rousseau. Do you think them being in the game would have had any impact on the outcome?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, we already talked about Kaiir Elam. Insert Benford. You don't get any Kaiir Elam madness, right? That doesn't mean Benford all of a sudden would have definitely not been burned by Calvin Ridley, but it certainly might have been a different outcome. Again, he was playing with more experience in terms of this season, more momentum, and playing really well through 4 games. And it would have been nice to have him out there. But, injuries happen and he's out. So the guys should have stepped up. With Rousseau, I feel like that definitely would have impacted the game more. You've already got Floyd playing with a foot injury of some kind, or hurt, I would call it, more than injured.
He had 2 sacks on the day.
Yeah, and you add Rousseau to that mix. Again, you're talking about rotations. You're talking about getting pressure, maintaining. That's what they've been doing in the good, really, I'd say all the games this year, and including that first one. And without Rousseau in there, it just meant more snaps for guys who were gassed and more for practice squad players. It was not an ideal situation. So I definitely think those 2 would have impacted the game, but that's part of football. You got to be able to play with some guys being injured. And unfortunately for the Bills, these 2 would have been much more impactful if they had played. The game would have been different. I agree.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, Von Miller fills that Rousseau slot and made a few plays, right? What you expect to see. So hopefully he gets healed up and can play more and more. And same with Rousseau, because I think when they get all of them back in the rotation, they're going to be pretty dominant, especially with AJ Epinesa playing the way he's been playing the past few weeks. It's going to be a pretty dominant group. And then Benford as well. Like, this cornerback room is looking pretty thin. So I think any healthy corner you can get, even if it's Josh Norman, he's got to be ready to go.
He's a warm body at this point. I think he brought his, AARP card with him to this. But
and I'm kind of excited to see Benford back. Trey White kind of out of the mix now. So Benford is a guy that the team's going to be looking to, right? So I'm excited to see how he's going to handle that. But yeah, remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. Because the defense played decent, I think this excuse is low on my list. But more to get to before we make our final excuse decision. But let's go on excuse number 9. Too much Stephon Diggs, not enough Dalton Kincaid. Yes, I heard this. Yes,
what?
I did. Yes, I did. I didn't make this
up.
This
person's eyes are broken or something. All right. Okay, First of all, the definition, the first 3 words, too much Diggs, I don't believe that should be said by anybody at any time. If you can throw to Diggs every single play of the game, you'd probably win the game. So, I mean, even if the team knows it's coming, he's that damn good, and you should never, there's no such thing as too much Diggs in my mind. Now Diggs will get more attention. That's why you get other people involved, obviously. And Diggs did have a big game, but I don't think, just saying this statement, too much Diggs, not enough Kincaid. What are you going to do? Force the ball to Kincaid, a rookie, a tight end? Maybe they weren't playing him in position. Maybe you could argue he should have been playing differently, lining up differently. That doesn't mean he's going to be open on plays. That doesn't mean Josh Allen should suddenly go to Kincaid when Diggs is open or when Diggs is available. What are you going to do? Take 5 of those passes that went to Diggs and give them to Kincaid? I'd still rather have the ball in Diggs' hand. So to me, this is the most useless excuse so far. No, on all fronts for me. Not enough Diggs, not enough Kincaid, maybe, but not enough execution and catching on the offense. Again, we already talked about that with the guys who were getting the opportunities.
Yeah,
So
Stephon Diggs, 11 targets on the day, 8 receptions. Kincaid, 2 targets, 2 receptions. But the point is more about Dalton Kincaid's a first-round talent. And
Sure.
when you get drafted in the first round, expectations are there. All we've heard about this kid is he's a matchup nightmare. He's unique in his athleticism at the tight end position, with size and speed or size and agility. But we just haven't really seen it yet. We haven't seen the dominant game that I think a lot of people expect from Kincaid. And I feel like when the offense struggles and they had Cole Beasley back in the day, they would just dial up Cole Beasley.
Sure. And
Check
it's
it down, easy throws, get some yards, he'll run up the field. I think a lot of people were expecting to see some of that from Kincaid, and we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
it's easy
maybe
to
it's not
point.
dialed up.
It's easy to point at the execution, and maybe that's Ken Dorsey too. You could say he didn't draw up enough plays where Kincaid would get open and get the ball and be one of those options or the first option or whatever. But I just don't like this excuse as the way it's built or as a talking point in general. I mean, more Kincaid, sure, you could argue, let's get more slot involved, more Kincaid. That's what we brought him in for. He's got to build that chemistry and trust with Josh Allen. I think this statement is built on blinders of looking at Sam Laporta, right? The Detroit Lions have Sam Laporta. He's looked like the best tight end in the league or in the draft so far, for sure. He's really come on strong, but that's because they don't really have a second option at receiver, right? They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have a few good guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown is very good. He didn't play the past game, right? Which gave more to Sam Laporta. That offense has a lot more, dynamics to it. You can't compare that coming on to what Kincaid is going to be for this offense. He has to get going. You got to give the guy time. He's still a rookie. Plus, we also have Knox, who's getting involved in some of the plays and going to take some of those natural tight ends.
On the day.
Yeah, and he had 1 drop, right? I already talked about. So maybe you could argue send that to Kincaid instead, and maybe he makes a play. But those are all too much theoretical in my mind. Draw up more plays to Kincaid, sure, but is that going to work? Is that going to be your game plan? I don't think so. I don't think taking passes away from Diggs and giving them Kincaid is not going to be your answer.
Right. I just feel like that check down game is kind of missing right now. And this would be a whole different story if Diggs was, 15 targets, 7 receptions, but no, 11 targets on the day, 8 receptions, 121 yards, a touchdown. I mean, it works.
And one of those was the interception missed. So.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see that type of offense at some point, that the heavy tight end offense. They just haven't dialed it up yet. And I thought maybe in this game when the offense is a little cold, it'd be a good time to try some of that stuff out, or at least showcase, the 2 tight end set and those underneath throws and things like that. But just didn't see it. Didn't come to fruition. All right, so 3 left. Excuse number 10. The Bills need more offensive weapons. Whoa, before you blow up. This is real. I heard this. I heard we need to trade for another weapon.
Come on.
I heard that the weapons we have aren't getting it done. It's real.
Well,
it's real.
Well, the weapons we have aren't getting it done in this game, right? Coming into this game, James Cook was on fire, right? 2 games ago, he had 100 yards, this, that. He's looking really good. And now all of a sudden he's trash? What? You're saying Kincaid needs more opportunities, but now all of a sudden he's not good enough to be the number 3 target or whatever, or be in the slot? What do you want? You want to trade for Jamar Chase? No team in the NFL has 2 number 1 wide receivers. Okay, we have Diggs. You've got Kincaid. You've got Gabe Davis. Now, I've been critical of Gabe Davis, and I've said that he has to do more. but he's still making plays. I think he has a touchdown in 4 of the
Big
5
play
games.
Gabe.
Yeah,
He had some
right.
big plays in this
Now
game.
he has
Give
drops. He's
credit
got to
there.
improve. But again, who's gonna be the upgrade over Gabe Davis in that situation? That's actually going to be available. You're going to trade for another number 1 wide receiver and pay him ridiculous amounts of money? That's not how the NFL works. So to me, this is a whiny excuse of, oh, the Bills need more weapons on offense. Who are you going to get? Are you going to build the Pro Bowl team of wide receivers? No.
Well, not to
You
mention, I
have
feel like
weapons. They need to execute. It needs to get the chemistry going. There was a lot wrong in this game, certainly on those things. But I don't think there's anybody who could be brought in that's going to be an immediate upgrade over Gabe Davis or Dalton Kincaid, because we're not talking about Stephon Diggs here. I mean, what other weapons are there? What
well,
do you want?
this is the deepest receiver room, running back room, tight end
Yeah.
room that the Bills have had. Right?
That's what I mean.
I don't think anybody contests that, right? Like, you have 3 good backs. You know, I wouldn't say all of them could be starters on every team, but I'd say all of them could probably be backups in most teams, right? That's pretty deep. And then you have 2 starting tight ends. And then, before this year we had Beasley, McKenzie was our 3 and 4 receiver. So I think Hardy and Sherfield are both upgrades, and from what we've seen, they're doing their role, right?
Yeah, they're sprinkled in there.
They're throwing the ball 30 sometimes a game. There's not enough hands, but they're spreading the ball around, and that's what's different this year. And that's
the
because
past
of the
2 games we
have.
talked about how he used 9 targets, 8 targets, right? Josh Allen connected with 9 different guys, 8 different guys. Nobody was saying we need more offensive weapons then. I mean, this is crazy to me to say this, right? Like you said,
9 targets again in this game.
The depth at running back, the depth at
9
receiver,
different receivers.
we're there. Okay. There's nobody who's going to come in, nobody who's available. What are you going to trade for Mecole Hardman? Woo, he's an upgrade over where? There's no snaps for somebody like that. This is the worst one yet.
Yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that one. How about excuse number 11? Josh needs to run the ball more. If he ran the ball more, outcome would have been different. Don't totally disagree with this one.
Yeah.
I think overall they should have ran the ball more, because you can, right? When the passing game's not working because of drops, lack of focus, everyone's tired, whatever, you can rely on the running game a little bit more than you have in the past.
The problem I have with this take is you can't have it both ways, right? One game you're like, oh, Josh shouldn't run as much because we don't want him to get hurt, right? Josh is very good at taking the opportunity when it's given to him. Does he sometimes miss when the field is open and he should run and he ends up throwing to try and make a play? Sure, but his first job is to throw and make the play, not to run. So I don't know if this means more design quarterback runs, which I never really like unless it's short down. But I'm struggling with this one. Yeah, should he have rolled out a little more and found some open space and run the ball more? Maybe that would have been more effective, but you can't count on that, and you can't really knock him on that because he's very, very good at taking the opportunities when they're there. And when he isn't, it's because we're telling him you should, as a quarterback, look to pass the ball first and only run if you need to, right? And keep your body safe and do the safe things. We saw all the injuries on that turf. You want to run Josh more and give him more opportunities to get hurt? No, thank you. I'd rather lose the game than have that outcome, right? So this is another one where, sure, maybe it would have changed the game plan a little had he found some open ground and been able to run the ball. But again, that wasn't effective versus the Jaguars. I don't think design quarterback runs or Josh Allen rolling out and making runs would have been the difference in this game.
Interesting. It's funny too, because there's 3 different running backs touch the ball in this one. Josh being one of the runners makes it 4. And Josh is still the leading rusher with 14 yards. Amazing.
Yeah, bad. Not good. When your leading rusher is the quarterback on 5 rushes.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't have it both ways. I mean, we want Josh to be healthy. It's only week 5. Bills,
yes,
the record's in a decent place. Don't get your quarterback hurt out there. But again, I'd have to watch the all 22 to see if there was lanes maybe Josh didn't take, or was he found a guy open. It's really case by case, but just to go out and say it's an excuse of why they lost if Josh didn't run. You can't have it both ways, right? And Josh has been very mature in the pass game this year. I think it's the most mature we've seen him in the pass game so far through 5 games.
Definitely.
All right, getting close to the end here. We got 2 left. Excuse number 12. The Jags had a great game plan and Trevor Lawrence made great throws. This is absolutely true. I think they came out, exposed the Bills defense early. Maybe not didn't score on every drive, but I mean, they were getting guys wide open. Travis Etienne had a great day on the ground. We saw Kelvin Ridley. They were attacking the corner who hasn't played a game yet this year. And I just love their play action game was very effective. And I thought, and Trevor Lawrence, to his credit, was putting the ball on the money throughout all day.
I mean, I would challenge that in a couple of ways to say that they did have a good game plan. They were effective in making the Bills punt, but that was more of the offense shooting themselves in the foot. And what made them look great was the stat line. To me, if you watch this game, I didn't think Travis Etienne was that effective until the fourth quarter when he scored touchdowns and made it look easy because the defense was completely gassed. He didn't gouge them for big plays, really. He had a couple of good runs, but for the most part, they were stiffing him at the line again, just like they have been in previous games. So that bend occasionally and stop offense of the run game has been effective for the Bills. And it would have been, I think, had they been able to rotate guys in and not had the injuries they had. So this goes back on some of the other excuses, overlaps with that a bit. The Jags did have the right game plan. Trevor Lawrence did not play out of his mind. To me, the Jags offense played horrendous in this game. Horrendous until the fourth quarter. You had like 500 yards and 11 points. So don't tell me that Trevor Lawrence made great throws. Yeah, he did. Under pressure, he did what I expect Trevor Lawrence to do. Make big plays. That's he's that good of a quarterback. He's capable of doing that. It's frustrating, but he's capable of finding that open man. Now, again, if we're playing our starting cornerbacks and he's not, is he still going to be able to find that open man? Maybe not. If we have our pass rushers, do they get home before he's able to release the ball? Maybe. So Trevor Lawrence did make throws, good throws in this game, but it was not a good game for Trevor Lawrence. It was not a good game for Travis Etienne. Stat sheet wise, sure, everybody's going to say, oh, look at the stat sheet. They had a good game. No, it was 11 points with like 500 something yards of offense all the way into the fourth quarter. And that was because the offense turned the ball over. The offense made mistakes. The offense couldn't finish against our B-rated defense at best, right? So even with the guys gassed and everything, I thought they did a good job of stopping them from having a great day. But the game plan defensively was effective. That's all you can say. I mean, our guys didn't execute when they had the chance, and the Jags knew what was coming when it was coming and were able to hold on to that and stop the offense. So I give them partial credit for this one.
Ooh, partial. That's fair. First 3 drives in the first quarter for the Jaguars: punt, touchdown, field goal. They had the 2-point conversion because of the penalty. If you remember that was executed well by them. Second quarter, Jaguars punt, fumble as a result. Third quarter only had the ball 1 time, which was a punt, and then they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Basically seals the deal. I mean, really, you could argue this: if Travis Etienne didn't break that long run for a touchdown, I think the Bills win the game.
Yeah, and again, that to me was a product of just not having the bodies anymore. And it was 90 snaps on defense, and pretty much every guy is playing every snap because
right,
we don't
and
have
the Bills' offense was getting hot. Right, towards the end of the game, you started seeing them
Sure.
execute. Started seeing the long plays to Gabe
More
Davis.
time
And
might have
starting to
yeah.
work. Right, so I mean, they just ran out of time, but I think the game was trending that the Bills were
Yes.
playing a lot better. But because of the good game plan the Jags had early on and the cold start from the Bills,
Yes.
the result was different. So
And it was smart
credit
of the Jags to do that, right? I do credit them. In the fourth quarter, they recognized that this defense is tired. They're gassed. The guys have been playing. We're going to run the ball down their throat. And that's what they were able to do to get more points on the board in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, they do get credit for that.
All right, last one here. Excuse number 13, the refs.
People always want to blame the refs, and I'm
Yes.
included, right? Like, don't get me wrong. The refs always make bad calls, it seems. These refs were flag happy. I don't think anybody will deny that. Every single play, flag.
I'll just never
flag.
understand it.
But
I'll never understand why you want to throw a flag. Like there was one series, I think it was where the Bills maybe it was the Jaguars on the red zone, and they threw so many flags that just went on through like
yeah,
3
they got like
commercial
4
breaks.
chances. Yeah.
And it's just a horrible, horrible experience for the fan.
Even
Just
the
to sit there and
touchdown,
wait for a single play to happen. It took forever.
the Bills touchdown to Gabe Davis. Oh, wait, no, it wasn't a touchdown. 10-yard penalty for
Oh
pass
my
interference. Oh,
God.
wait, now they get a touchdown again. There was a couple big penalties early that I did not like. So one, and I did not see. Why? Because NFL Network, even though they're the NFL Network, decides we don't need to show any replays of anything. Oh, the ref called a penalty. I guess it happened, right? Oh, 17 men on the field. I guess that's the thing now, because we're not going to show you any camera angle. We're going to zoom in on somebody's face instead of showing you a replay of what actually happened. There was, I think it was on, who was it on? Oliver early, the hands to the face in the red zone on a third down that gave them another first down in the red zone, and they were able to score the touchdown on their first touchdown. I kept saying, show the replay. Show the damn replay. Where's the hands to the face call?
Right.
No replay, no nothing. So the ref said it happened. It must have happened. We don't know. I don't know. I didn't watch the all 22. I didn't see that play at all. So they called the penalty. It clearly impacted the game. The Jags were able to score instead of kick a field goal on that first one, where they would have at least had to force a field goal. And then there was the Jordan Poyer penalty later in the game.
Hit.
That, to me, it was stupid, because I don't care if it is league, like that was a legit call. You can argue that or not. The argument I have is Poyer's coming from one way. The back of the receiver is to him. The ball comes in. How is Poyer supposed to know he didn't catch that ball? Poyer has no choice but to finish that play. I felt he did everything he could football-wise and made the play he was supposed to make. And they said, no, you hit a defenseless receiver. He's not defenseless. He doesn't know that the guy doesn't have the ball. It's not like the ball was already past him and Poyer finished and hit him.
Yeah, you're right.
No.
And a lot of times it's a boom boom play. We see the slow motion replay, like, oh yeah, he did hit him, but like it's happened so fast.
It's not like he hit him in the head or he led with his helmet, or no, it was just a boom play, because if Poyer doesn't tackle him, if he does catch the ball, Poyer looks like a friggin' idiot for standing there and letting the guy run by him. Like, you cannot, this is football. You cannot make that call anytime for any reason. The back of the receiver is to the defender. He doesn't know. He has to hit that guy. And it's, again, it wasn't a violent hit. It's not like he hit him with his helmet. It was a stupid call, again, that gave the Jacksonville a key first down that allowed them to keep driving, take time off the clock, and not have to punt the ball back to the Bills when they were still only at 11 points. So it was a huge momentum killer, and I did not like that call in particular. But there were other ones during the game that they called no replay. Holding, no replay. Okay, I guess there was holding there. Okay, I guess, we don't know how egregious it was or whatever, because the refs just kept throwing flags. And so maybe they were legit, maybe they weren't. Part of that's on the replay, part of that's on the refs themselves. Like, come on, at some point you got to let guys play. And maybe, it's not like I felt in this game the refs were screwing the Bills. The Bills were screwing themselves on a lot of it, right? That comes down to execution and being tired and all that too. But yeah, it was not ugly. I don't like this excuse today for this game, because I don't think it was the refs that lost us the game. But I don't like those bad plays that the refs probably shouldn't have called the penalty, or that we didn't see if they called the penalty, or if it was
you want to see what's going on, right? And make your own judgment.
Show me it's a legit call.
Right. So it's, and I kind of see both sides, because if the team's rushing the ball up to the line, you don't have time to show the replay. It gets away from the broadcast crew a little bit. But again, the fan experience, we want to see every single penalty, right, to make our own judgment. Jaguars on the day, 8 penalties, 56 yards. The Bills had 11 for 109 yards. Jaguars had 4 first downs by penalty. The Bills had 2. So just any time there's 19 penalties, anything over 15, it's just
the refs are just flag happy. Yeah, they're just flag happy.
Yep. So anyway, always a rough one, but let's review here and we'll make our judgment on which excuse you're going to pick as the most viable reason why the Bills lost this game. Number 1, Bills should have arrived in London earlier in the week. Number 2, Bills should have ran the ball more. Number 3, the turf. Number 4, key injuries to Jones and Milano. Number 5, Kaiir Elam getting smoked. Excuse number 6, Ken Dorsey, play calling. Excuse number 7, the cold start of the offense, 3 and outs. Excuse number 8, Greg Rousseau and Christian Benford did not play. Excuse number 9, too much Diggs, not enough Kincaid.
Jesus. Still can't even legitimize it.
First round talent. Excuse number 10, Bills need more offensive weapons. Excuse number 11, Josh needs to run the ball more. Only 14 yards on the day for Josh. Excuse number 12, Jags had a great game plan. Trevor Lawrence made great throws. And number 13, the refs. Which one are you picking?
I mean, ultimately, it's a combination of a lot of these things, but I think I lean heavily on number one, the travel decision, because that led to a lot. I mean, we saw it from the get-go that they were tired, that it did not look good, that the energy was just not there, and that travel probably had to do a lot with it. And then number three, the turf. Obviously, that led to injuries, that led to mistakes. The players were upset about it after the game. Both sides, right? Both sides said the turf was not great. So that tells me, that had an impact on the game and it shouldn't have. And obviously, any combination of the other things together, the injuries before the game, playing these guys, but those are excuses. Those are more to me, reasons that you lose, not excuses for losing. 1 and 3 were very impactful, I think, and things that could have been prevented with changes before this game ever happened. So to me, those are the ones I lean on.
Yep, and I'm going to go excuse number 2, Bill should have ran the ball more. And excuse number 7, 3 and outs. Again, they tie together a little bit. Not so much excuses, but just kind of lack of execution. I thought the Bills could have gotten to the pit a little bit and just kind of pushed the team back. The rookie right guard was struggling a little bit and getting holding penalties and stuff. So I thought you just line up, run it down their throat, see how it works. And it just really didn't come that way. I feel like that's kind of a new dynamic to this offense. You could line up and run it and even run one with Josh, right? Not too much, right? We talked about, but like at least get some sort of spark to the offense when everyone's struggling, and hopefully it'll get everyone focused in and energized up. But I feel like that never really came. So anyway, good game overall. I mean, the Jags looked pretty decent, and we expected them to be an AFC contender this year. It looks like they're going to be that now. And I never want the Bills to play in London again.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Play on football fields, please.
Yeah.
Actual NFL football fields.
Yeah. All right. Couple quick topics to get to. Let's review your best bets from week 5 real quick.
Yeah, it was a pretty good week. Could have been better. Couple, 3 and 3 is not bad. That's a great place to be 50%. I think the big one was the top 2. My big bet of the week was the Bengals. They definitely showed up in this game. That was a win. I picked the Texans again, +2. They lost by 2, and it was heartbreaking because they almost won the game. They should have won the game in my mind, but they did lose to the Falcons, so that ended up as a push. Really wish they would have gotten a field goal at the end of the game there to win it, but wasn't meant to be. Obviously, I picked the Bills. That did not turn out as we had hoped, as we have exhausted now. The Vikings +4 at the Chiefs. The Vikings got screwed by a bad penalty call again. They should have had a chance to score and beat the Chiefs, which is what I predicted. Instead, they lose by more
Vikings,
than 4.
Getting away from them a little bit this season. Losses are getting away.
Again, yeah, and they're piling up for different reasons. The Chiefs were clearly given the advantage there by the refs at the end of the game, from what little I saw of that. And then the Titans +1.5 at the Colts. Wow, the Colts came out on fire running the ball. Jonathan Taylor returns and Zach Moss gets 200 yards. What the hell happened there, right? So that was not a game that turned out the way I thought it would. And the Saints +1 against the Patriots. The Saints absolutely put a pounding on the Patriots, and I talked about the injuries, and that was part of the reason why I was not heavy on the Saints. So overall, 3 and 3. Now my record is 20, 12 and 3, or 23 and 12, if you want to put it that way to make it easier. I'm keeping track of the ties, though, too. Still well in our winning ways, which is a good week, especially in a week like this where you have so many teams on bye. There were less games to pick from, but I'm hoping we can turn it around for this week and put another big win total up there. 5-1, 6-0. That's what we're aiming for. I want you to win all of the money on these games. We're still in that plus mode. We're still winning money. That's where you want to be. But let's keep it rolling into the next week.
Yeah, and be sure to tune in to our show on Thursday night. We'll talk about the week 6 breakdown. We'll give Anthony's best bets for week 6. We normally kick off at 10:30 or 7:30 if you want to watch live. Podcast posts at 6 a.m. on Friday. Catch that in the morning. All right. Twofold question. Can the Bills still compete for the number 1 seed with these injuries in the AFC? And then who needs to step up for them to get them there? Matt Milano out for the season. DaQuan Jones out for the season. Trey White out for the season. Which players do you want to see step up and fill those roles effectively to keep this team afloat as a contender, a number 1 seed contender?
Yeah, I mean, to speak to the first part, I would say it's going to be a lot more difficult, right? Compete, yes, that's the goal. You're still winning games. It's not like I don't think the Bills are going to still win 12 or more games this season.
So do you think they're a wild card? They're competing for wild card now?
Who?
The Bills.
No, they're going to win the division still. Miami is not going to beat Buffalo in this division. I still hold to that. Even with these injuries, I still think Buffalo ends up on top of the division. But I did not even think coming into the season that we would be the number 1 seed because we have a tough schedule, because there are easier ways for other teams to do it. We've seen Kansas City continue to do things to win games. They're not playing their best football. They're still winning a lot of games. That's the kind of momentum you want. We've seen Jaguars now have a head-to-head against Buffalo. It's going to be hard to beat them when they end up with their win total. They have a much easier schedule going forward. So, those teams I had above the Bills in the playoff standings before the season. So it's going to be hard to compete for that number 1 seed, but they're still going to be in the conversation come December, right? For that number 1 seed in my mind. As far as who needs to step up, I always feel like that's an unfair question in a lot of ways, right? Because Benford has already been doing everything very well this season. So, but is he ever going to be Trey White? I don't think that expectation is reasonable, right? So do I expect Benford to come back and play at the level he's been playing at? Yes, please, right? Like that's what I need to see.
Well, different positions. You said Trey White. You meant Milano, right?
Trey White and Benford.
Oh, Benford, my bad.
Yes, yeah. So Milano is, again, I don't think there's anybody in the NFL you could bring in, trade all the picks in the world, bring in X player right now to fill into this defense the way Matt Milano does. There is no other replacement for Matt Milano. Dorian Williams, we saw a little bit of him in the preseason. He was able to do pretty well, but you're talking about a guy who does not have experience, a guy you're bringing in cold. There is no reasonable expectation to set for replacing Matt Milano. You are going down 7 notches no matter who comes in to replace Matt Milano, but you need to see consistency. And I think what right now the plan is probably to go with Dorian Williams. Maybe they bring in somebody else. Hopefully, I think it's going to be a matter of the conversation now shifting to, are the Bills going to make a move? Is this the season that you trade the top couple picks, first round, second round, in next year to invest in a guy who suddenly becomes available? The problem is that those guys aren't available right now. I don't think there's a lot of teams tearing it down. You can look at the Broncos and say, okay, who's going to be available? I don't know that there's a lot of desirable names there. The Cardinals have already sold the farm pretty much, and until that trade deadline approaches, you might not have an opportunity to bring in a guy like that. There's no free agents out there that I feel like are going to be impactful, suddenly able to come in and cold and learn this offense and fill in that way for Matt Milano. So I trust Sean McDermott. He's already proven it. This defense, again, holding that offense to 11 points, still going into the fourth quarter with no depth. As long as you get the guys who are going to be healthy back, Benford, Rousseau, I think that's going to take it up a notch. And then you find a way to not get attacked over the middle, in the middle linebacker spot all day long, or in the outside linebacker spot all day long, because you're covering for, Matt Milano's coverage skills and everything. So it's an unreasonable expectation, but people do have to step up. And I think those two names, Benford and Dorian Williams, are going to be the first two that we see given that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's so much Benford. I mean, Benford's going to be Benford, but who's going to be playing a lot more is probably Dane Jackson.
Dane Jackson, right.
Or even Kaiir Elam. I think those two guys,
it'll
be matchup per matchup, but they have to step up and they're going to have to hold down their spot throughout the whole season now. Whereas previously they might have played, this game or that game, but they're going to get a lot of snaps now. And for me, it's Tyrell Dotson for the linebacker. I think Dorian Williams, he looked a little lost out there at times.
No
still
experience.
learning.
Yeah.
The NFL's fast right out the gate, but I think Dotson's been on the team for a number of years now. That experience is going to matter, right?
Yeah, but
And
the bar is
I
a
think
lot
he'll get more
lower with
playing time.
Dotson. That's my problem. Dotson, we know what he is, and it's only reasonable. It's not above reasonable. Dorian Williams has the ability to rise and get better. And that's why I said his name instead of Dotson. Now Dotson does have the trust and the, experience. So maybe they lean on him. Maybe it's more rotational. They got to find an answer. If it were me, GM Anthony Romeo would be finding a linebacker who's out there, who's available to bring in that I feel fits this team. That's not an easy task right now because nobody is calling you saying, "Hey, you want our linebacker?"
Yeah,
It's
right.
not exactly an easy position to be
Yeah,
in. It's easy to say, "Oh, trade for a guy." It's not easy to make that happen.
right. Yeah, like Rokon Smith we mentioned before the show going to Baltimore. If a situation like that happens, I think the Bills got to look at least try to jump on something like that to save the season. But you
Yeah,
never know if your guys are stepping up and playing well. We know McDermott can coach linebackers. We know that this team and this staff can develop players. So that's going to be put to the test now more than ever. Um, yeah, and DaQuan Jones as well. Who do you think fills in for him? I think we saw a lot of Jordan Phillips, but again, might be a rotation there. Um, Maybe Puna Ford gets more playing time.
yeah, I do think Puna Ford might be. He's been inactive a couple games. Might be the guy we saw settle.
Tim
I
Settle, right?
I don't know that Settle is, all of a sudden going to be an every down player. And again, DaQuan Jones was playing at such a high level. It's unreasonable to think that
Yeah,
somebody can come in and fill his shoes. But because we have the depth on the defensive line, this is why we signed Puna Ford. We saw that playoff game and said, if we lose a guy like this, we can't afford to put Tim Settle in every snap, right? So you
yeah.
need somebody who has experience. And I think Puna
Mhm.
Ford is going to be, active and seeing some of that time to see, what do him and Oliver look like next to each other out there, and
Right. I
can
think
they?
we'll see kind of a rotation as well,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I would expect that. And yeah, it just hurts having we had Christian Kingsley or Kirksley on the
yeah,
roster. He retires, but I mean, we would be feeling a lot better knowing that he was, through 5 weeks, probably would have had the system down, probably would have been seeing some playing time by now.
yeah,
So that ends up hurting the Bills
yeah. And
pretty bad
before
under
that, we knew there weren't.
circumstances.
Before he got cut, there were not any linebackers out there that we could suddenly sign,
Right.
and bring in. So depth is short right now.
Yes. And so we'll probably talk about this every single week. Looking ahead to the Giants game starting on Thursday night live. Podcast kicks off Friday. We'll get into the Giants Sunday night football this weekend, and we'll start looking at who do you think is going to be getting the reps. We'll be looking at injuries. And we'll probably have some final details on how long some of these players will be out. I think we'll get that by then, right? Not looking good for all three of them. Trey White, we know, is out for the year. Milano, broken leg, he's out for the year. And DaQuan Jones, I don't know if it's been verified. I saw indefinitely.
Mhm.
We'll get the details, but likely gone for the entire year. So we'll be
Likely
looking at
going
that.
on IR. Yeah, and
Right.
probably not for
Yes.
only 4 weeks.
Right.
So
Right.
not good.
Long term IR.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I said, getting you ready for the Giants starting on Thursday, Sunday night football, and then the Bills. After that, travel to the Patriots, who just
They're falling
wow,
apart on all levels. Yeah.
wow, a shutout, 34-0. I've never seen that in my days. A Bill Belichick team. I mean, it seems like
Going
a
back
failure to adapt to the new
going
NFL, right?
going back to the drawing board.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just there's a lot wrong. If they don't get that corrected fast, there's going to be a lot wrong with them all year.
So
And
two
then
semi-soft games, right? A team that's
yes. Well, the
struggling and
Giants
injured in
are
the Giants. They're injured though. We don't know who's playing quarterback. We don't know who's playing
right,
running back.
right,
Their offensive line looked like a sieve the last few games, and against our D line, even our backups, even our
right.
thirds,
They have
that's
not
not
looked
going to
good.
add up
Yeah.
well. The Patriots, falling apart at all levels, can't get the offense clicking at all. So that's
Yep.
advantage to our
Huge.
defense. Their defense has not been living up to its expectations either.
Yep.
So, I mean, I like those two matchups for where the Bills are at
Right.
right now.
Yeah, and the Bills know what's at stake here, right? These are winnable games,
You got to finish.
and
Yep.
you got to finish them. I mean, the Bills are the best bounce back team in the league. We've said that a million times. But then looking even farther ahead, we have Thursday night versus the Bucks. That's in Buffalo. Should be a fun matchup. And then they're at Cincinnati, which should be a really fun matchup. Cincinnati's really owned the Bills the last 2 times they played, and I know one of the games got cut short. But man, in that first quarter or whatever it was, first half, Cincinnati was really handing it to Buffalo. So that'll be a really fun matchup. The Bills can't afford to get blown out again by Cincinnati. That would just be killer for them. So a lot of fun matchups coming up. We're here for it. We're looking forward to it. I think the Bills got to win as many games as they can early on. Schedule gets tougher down the stretch. So we'll be getting you ready for that. And getting you game planning, talking things about the game, who we like, what we would do, how you going to attack, all that good fun stuff. But that's all we have for tonight. We're full of excuses. And I think we can put it all to bed now and move on with our life. So thanks for tuning in. And let Anthony sign us out.
Thanks for kicking it with us.